Alrighty, I have a story that I want to talk about today. Sorry, my microphone is a little bit loose. The story, or what we're going to go over today, I have a question that I would like to answer a question or get your guys' answer to a question. I'm not quite sure how to phrase this, but the question I want to ask is, why is the mayor of Columbus so dead set on forcing officers to leave the department that serves his city? That's the question I have for today. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because of this article that I found in the Columbus Dispatch. This was written on November the 2nd, 2022, by Columbus Dispatch reporter Bethany Bruner. The headline reads, as if you guys can't read it for yourself, Columbus plans to pay $500,000 voluntary retirement buyouts to 4 deputy police chiefs. What that means is that the city of Columbus is trying to encourage 4 deputy chiefs to retire early with a $500,000 incentive. According to details provided to the Dispatch by City Human Relations Director Nicole Brandon, 5 deputy chiefs will be eligible to opt into the program on Monday and will have 24 hours to inform the city if they are interested. The $500,000 payment is available for up to 4 deputy chiefs with 25 years or more of experience, which one of them does not have. One of the 6 doesn't have that time. So the 5 remaining deputy chiefs, Tim Becker, Jennifer Knight, Ken Keebler, Thomas Quinlan, and Kelly Weiner, would be selected based on seniority if they should all apply. Here's kind of the funny part of it. It says, but there is a catch. Any deputy chief accepting the buyout would have to dismiss any legal complaints or lawsuits filed against the city related to their employment. And then it goes on to discuss that Deputy Chief Jennifer Knight currently has a federal lawsuit pending against Mayor Andrew J. Ginther. That's him right here. Chief Elaine Bryant and the city, alleging that she has been targeted for drug tests and forced to perform those drug tests in the nude. The Ohio Civil Rights Commission said a complaint filed by Deputy Chief Keebler is still pending the initial determination. No additional details about his complaint can be released until it is heard by the commission, according to a spokesperson. And then if you also go up to the top of the page, so this one here is Deputy Chief Jennifer Knight. Ken Keebler, he's in this article over here that I don't know if I'm going to go over or not. And then you have Thomas Quinlan. We talked about Deputy Chief Quinlan the other day. He was the one that was appointed chief of police, and then he was unceremoniously basically fired and demoted back to deputy chief just before his probationary period was over. The mayor had to kind of demote him right before his probationary period was over, because if he waited a couple more days, he would have had to fire him for cause. And Chief Quinlan didn't do anything to be fired for cause, so he was simply demoted. There's also a possibility that Deputy Chief Thomas Quinlan might file a lawsuit at some point in the future, which is why it's kind of funny that it says that there is a catch. Any deputy chief accepting this buyout would have to dismiss any legal complaints or lawsuits against the city relating to their employment. And then if you go down a little bit, it says in August, City Council approved language for up to $1 million in funds for a buyout for deputy chiefs, enough to pay out $300,000 to three people. Council has not yet approved the additional funding, and it's not clear where the money would be drawn from to pay $2 million in payments to give 4 deputy chiefs $500,000 each. Emails sent to the deputy chiefs in September show that the initial offer of a buyout was $300,000 for 3 deputy chiefs. No deputy chiefs took the offer. It's unclear if they would promote from within or use external candidates. It also said that the city previously offered $200,000 in buyouts to 100 officers who had 25 years or more experience. It's my belief, and it's a belief of a lot of other people, that this initial $200,000 buyout was put in place to entice the deputy chiefs to go ahead and retire early. None of the deputy chiefs took that money, so then the city went ahead and approved $1 million in funding to encourage 3 deputy chiefs to leave, and none of the deputy chiefs decided to take that $300,000. Now they're offering $500,000 each for a total of $2 million in order to pay at least 4 deputy chiefs to leave. And these are deputy chiefs who are saying at least a couple of them already have open federal lawsuits or the threat of a federal lawsuit against the city. So why is all of this happening? The reason that all of this is happening is because the mayor of Columbus, Mayor Andrew Ginther, is a failure as a leader. And he thought that a leadership tactic in order to change the police department would be just be so toxic that you're going to force people to leave. He was being so toxic that that's what it says in this article right here. It says that the city hired a law firm in order to investigate Deputy Chief Ken Keebler and his Twitter account. And one of the comments that they highlighted in this I find quite hilarious. It says, in response to City Council President Shannon Hardin calling on protesters' curfew charges to be immediately dropped, Keebler tweeted, "Step-by-step guide for politicians. 1. Make new laws. 2. Use the police to enforce those new laws. 3. Accuse the police of violating people's rights by enforcing the new law. 4. Repeat." Because that is what happened in 2020, in the summer of 2020, the summer of love, as many people said. The downtown area of every major metropolitan city in the United States was on fire. In response to that, this guy right here, Zach Klein, the city attorney, and this guy right here, Mayor Andrew Ginther, drafted a curfew. There was a curfew put in place to stop these violent riots from happening. They then sent the police department down to stop these riots from happening, to enforce this curfew. And then they turned around and said, you know what? The police arrested too many people. We want those charges dismissed. And in the interest of, what was it? Racial equity, I think is what they said. They went ahead and dismissed somewhere in the range of 2,000 criminal charges. These deputy chiefs were rather outspoken against this. And in response to that, they were investigated, forced to strip down naked to perform drug tests, having an outside law firm collect tens of thousands of dollars to try to find a way to criminally charge a deputy chief to try to get him to try to curtail his First Amendment activities. Let's put it that way. These are traits of a toxic leader who is trying to get the people under him to quit. The reason I say it's a failed leadership is because a good leader will do what he can when he has people under him that are not performing the way he wants them to perform, might be sub-performers, or just people that he has had a hard time working with in the past. A good leader will find a way to create that relationship, to nurture a relationship, to bring people up, to support them so that they can be the types of subordinates that he wants. This is something that I have some experience with, even though I'm not the oldest man in the world. I'm 43 years old, but I've been through a couple of things in my life. And one of the big things that I've been through in my life that's done a lot to shape who I am today was my experience in combat in 2003 in Iraq. And that's something I want to talk about today, because prior to the Iraq war starting, I had already been in the military for 6 years at the time. I was a Sergeant E5. I'd already been through some kind of deployment type things, and when we came home, I didn't think we were going anywhere anytime soon. I decided that I was going to go to OCS. When you go to OCS, you're taken out of your spot in your platoon and your company, and you're put in another kind of holding pool for people that are going to go to OCS. I was going to become an officer. I was going to become a lieutenant. Then I got word that my unit was being deployed to Iraq, and I was given the choice, look, you can continue on this roster for OCS. You can become an officer in the Army, and you can have a long leadership career as a commissioned officer, or you can give that up and you can go with your company and you can go to Iraq. I decided to give up my spot at OCS and join my friends. And I wasn't going to allow them to go to combat without me. That was the reason I joined the Army, and I was going to make sure that I did my job. One of the unfortunate things that happened in my situation was previously I was in the first squad, first team of first platoon in my company. I was the most promotable Sergeant E5, or one of the top handful in my company. I was the next guy that was going to become an E6 and get my own squad. When I took myself out of the platoon to go to CS and then was brought back in, I think I had the option, but I declined it. I could have been put back in my previous position, but what that meant was I would have been taking a team away from another sergeant who had earned that team. And instead, I was put in the third squad, which was kind of filled with replacements. I was given a replacement squad leader as a supervisor, and I was given 2 team members who were replacements as well. One of those replacements was somebody that I had a prior relationship, a very negative relationship with. He was somebody that I had been known to, because you guys might have seen me angry, you might not have seen me angry in the past, but there's a rumor that once upon a time, this young man was sitting on a toilet, and I'd found out that he had said something about me I didn't like. Me being the higher ranking non-commissioned officer in the platoon, when a lower enlisted person says something like that to you, you go and you address that as soon as possible. The time that I chose to address that issue was when he was sitting on the toilet. I kicked open a bathroom door and I stood over him and I yelled at him loud enough that his grandchildren are probably still hearing that to this day. That was the relationship I had with this man. He was put into my team when I came back to my unit to be deployed to Iraq. It was a 100% certainty that we were going to go to combat together. I remember getting the roster and looking at it and thinking some expletives. I was like, damn it, this guy's in my team. What am I going to do? And I didn't quite have the answer to that, but I went over to him and I saw him sitting down, and the first thing I said was like, tell me, do you believe in God? He kind of shrugged me off and started to ignore me. I said, no, answer the question. Do you believe in God? I remember him saying, well, yeah, I do. And I took the list, I slammed it down on the table, and I pointed out, I said, if you believe in God, you better start praying, because you're mine now. That was his wake-up call. But like I said, I didn't have a choice. This was a guy that was a subpar performer, somebody that I didn't get along with in the past, someone I had personal problems with in the past. But he and I were going to go to combat, and I wanted to come home alive. I wanted him to come home alive. I wanted all of my friends to come home alive. So the option that I had was to make sure that he was, going into it, he wasn't the type of soldier that I wanted to be in combat with, but I wanted to make sure that by the time we got there, he was. I did a variety of things with him to help build him up, give him the support that he needed to help him come to my way of thinking so that we could successfully conduct the mission that was required of us and work together. We went through that deployment to Iraq, and I can say with a tremendous amount of pride that he and I are very good friends to this day. We went as a team of 3. One of us did not come home. And it was not because of that soldier. He performed very well. That's what leaders do. This stuff about not being able to work with your subordinates and creating an environment so toxic that they're filing federal lawsuits against you and you have to try to bribe them to get them to leave, that is a failed leader. That's the reason that this kind of stuff is happening in the city of Columbus, Ohio. Those are my thoughts for today. I'll talk to you soon.